Hey everybody, Boris Schlossberg with BKTraderFx. It's great to be back from the Middle East, from the Abu Dhabi Middle East Expo, where some of the lessons that I learned from my colleagues I'm going to try to talk to you about today. The single most important aspect of trading that I really came away with from the show was the idea of trading with the flow. Ironically enough, almost everybody pays lip service to the idea of trading with a trend, but when you look at the actual real-time practice of what most traders do, they tend to fade the trend. They always want to sell tops, buy bottoms. And it's a very natural human inclination, basically because we hate the idea of paying up for something or paying down for something. We always want to buy something cheap and sell it dear. But in trading, that's always a very dangerous strategy to do. In fact, the most intelligent thing to do sometimes is the hardest, which is to go with the flow. Dollar CAD is a very, very good example of something like this. And as many of you know, we define trend, Kathy and I, basically by the Bollinger Bands. There's a million different ways you can do this, but for our purposes, we like this strategy. You can see that when price is within the lower Bollinger Bands, it tends to be very much in a downtrend. Here's a perfect example of that in dollar CAD over the last several months. It's just been a continuous downtrend and stayed well within the lower Bollinger Bands, 1 to 2 standard deviations. Whereas now, it popped up back into the upper Bollinger Bands, suggesting that it's now in the upper. It's suggesting basically that it's now in an uptrend. And this is where it gets very interesting, because a normal trader would come into this particular price formation and say, oh, it's already bounced, it already rose off the bottom of 91.50, I don't want to be chasing price here. But in fact, going long was a much more intelligent strategy than going short. Now we came in long in this candle over here. This was on Friday the 27th. And we went long basically on the assumption that we thought there was going to be a very strong potential run to the 100 figure, basically to parity, to 100 figure. And as you can see, somewhere in the lower end of the Bollinger Bands, which is where we like to do, but still in an uptrend. Most people would have tried to see if this was going to be a fade and try to go to the short side. Now, here's where it gets very interesting. The trade was very well intelligently laid out. We went long here using the prior day's low as our stop, because this was the key area of support, and if it was going to be a good trade, it was going to have to hold the support. I want to show you on hourly charts. Let me just zoom back. I think it's interesting to zoom back on the hourly charts quite a lot and see how this 98 level, we had our stops essentially below 98 level. See how this 98 level was so critical. Let me just zoom in. As you can see, it held support here, held support here, held support here, and that's what was so essential. If this trade was going to work, it was basically going to hold support, and of course eventually it did work. We went back up into the 99 zone and ultimately hit the 100 parity. We were able to make 45 points on the trade as we trailed it up to the upper level. But the key idea I wanted to leave you with is the idea of discipline, that is both joining the flow and making sure that you want to trade in the direction of where the general trend is going, and then staying at the right proper stop so that if your idea is wrong, you will know quite definitively that you're wrong. The flip side of this, of course, is in the euro side, where I want to show you how that pair, let me just go back to the daily chart, and let's get rid of the charts here. And now let's take a look at the euro, because the euro was the flip side of going with the flow. Here, you could have gone with the flow, which was the right trade, but the moment it broke trend, as you can see, the trade was no longer valid. So while the CAD trade, when you went with the flow, stayed with the trend and ultimately gave you profits, the very, very important flip side of all of this is that you cannot stay with the flow once trend is broken. And here, the euro clearly has broken its trend, and right now is very much in the no man's zone, but certainly looks like the euro bears have the power at this point. So it's a very complex but very interesting way of looking at the market. You want to go with strength as long as strength exists, but the moment strength leaves you, you need to leave the trade. That was the lessons I learned from Abu Dhabi. I wish you guys the best of trading. Next week, lots of activity, 4 central bank meetings. We hope to see you on the site. We hope to see you with the service. Take care. Over and out.